my friends. Today we're going to be talking about mistakes and what do we do about them. And I will tell you, in the early days, boy oh boy, if I had a mistake, I had no idea how to fix it, so it was always like, oh, that's it. Game over. You know, as I always say, Brian, can you sand this piece for me, right? Or I became the angry daughter. So what I wanted to do is give you a look at the things that we use to help fix our mistakes and let you know that almost always we can fix them, okay? So what do we have? We have Q-tips that we will dip in water. We will mold them so that we can get the fluff to stay down so it won't get into any other dots. So that's when your paint is wet. That's a really good tool to use. Even a wet paintbrush, just damp, and just slowly and gradually get those dots off. I love using the silicone tools for removing a dot that is not in the right place, or if I have to remove a few dots, and I'm going to show you some clips because, believe it or not, I have made a few mistakes. When your paint is dry, I love using this little scraper, or even without the thing, and it's just a very intentioned movement, I guess, small intentioned movement to try and remove it. Sometimes I'll start, if I have a larger dot to get off, I will start with this to just kind of peel it up a bit, and it works. You just have to be careful not to gouge your surface, or even a knife. I just got the eraser here because sometimes you'll need that to get your lines off. The chalk lines come off beautifully just with a wipe or a moist microfiber cloth. Now, if I do get to a point where there's something that's really, it's dried, but I've got to get it off, then after peeling off what I can, I'll always go in with a little piece of sandpaper and smooth that out. Because if you leave the ridges, the rims of those dots there, they're going to distort whatever you try and put down over them. I mean, yes, you can go in and paint your base coat over top, but if those ridges or rims are still there, they're going to distort your dot. So you've got to get it smooth. And again, you're working in a very small space, so you need a very small piece of sandpaper. I've got a little sanding sponge too if it were a bigger area, right? So you want to get it as smooth as possible. And then I just go in with my base paint and bring it back to its natural base, and you're good to go. So let's have a look at a few of these things that can happen. Starting in the very beginning, I think we all know the stress of that center dot. You've got to get it just right, or everything's going to be shifted one way or the other. And I can't tell you how many times it's taken me however many, 3, 4 center dots to get it in, right? So at least at that point, it's easy to go in and get that off and put your lines back in, right? It's when you get out in the rows or the petals that it can become a little more difficult, and sometimes trying to fix one mistake ends up, you end up damaging more dots and you have to take off quite a few. It happens, but at least we'll know how to deal with it, okay? All right. Let's start here with blunder number 1. So has anyone ever done this before? I think I was trying to get a little piece of fluff off the board, and boom, got my hand right into the paint. It is so me. So now what are we going to do about it? So I'll usually start with my silicone tool. It is such a great tool, and you could just go in with small, gentle movements, always pushing the paint in towards that dot. Then I've got my wet Q-tip that I, of course, molded, and I get off as much of that paint as I can. And, I'm going to take one more dot off. And then I'm going to go in with the base paint and paint that out so you don't see any of the white. And then I'll go back in and start placing dots again. In blunder number 2, I had placed 2 rows of dots using the 3.5mm tool, and then I decided I was going to move up to the 4mm tool for these purple dots. But I soon realized that they were just too big, and I was going to have to remove all of those dots and go back to the 3.5mm tool. So I used my wet Q-tip first, and you really want to get the ridges from those outlines of the circles off, otherwise they'll distort your dots, right? And then we'll carefully go back in with our base paint. Trying not to hit that pink, but get as close as you can, because otherwise you will see, if you miss any of this, you will see it after you wipe off your guidelines, that it looks different. Especially with the metallics. Ready to start again. Blunder number 3. Everybody knows the stress at this point, right? Are those dots going to fit nicely in there? Am I going to have too much space, not enough space? So I'm living through this stress. I'm putting these dots in, and I do it. But then I had to mess with that last dot. So I had to go in, take out that dot, and do the whole thing. Sometimes at this point you just need to step away for a minute, and then when you come back, if you still want to remove that dot, you go ahead and do it. I just always sort of squeeze the little frayed bits into the Q-tip so it doesn't hit into the next segment. And then we'll use a little bit of Rescue Black. And we place it back in, just like it never happened. Beautiful. Blunder number 4. Okay, you can see that my yellow, I tried to put Nouveau Drop Yellow over top of the yellow because the yellow was sort of cracking, and it just really didn't work out. So this is what I'm doing. I've done one. I'm going to peel up all of them. Yep. And then we'll regroup. So basically I'm just using one of my needlepoint tools. I try and get around the edges first if I can. And then it's peeling up nicely actually, I'm surprised. That's satisfying. Weird. I just don't want to put out something that I'm not proud of, you know? And the lumpiness of this paint, no. I'm gonna try my hardest not to leave any little ridges because it'll show. And on the other hand, I don't want to dig any grooves in this, so it's all a matter of balance. No biggie. Only 14 more to go. Nice. What do you think? Okay, let's see how this round goes. So I was much happier with how these ones turned out. They dried nicely. I made them a little bit smaller and I dotted around them using the green paint. So much happier. Happy little accident, right? So this wasn't really a mistake or a blunder, but after I put these curlicues in the copper and got doing some more of the piece, I really didn't like that color. And so this is just showing you can go in over top and change the color. you just do need to be sure that you cover up all of that color that's underneath. And I didn't stop there, but I love how it turned out, and I think that color change made a huge difference to the piece. And this is how it turned out. Another, well, not blunder, but I just decided that the eyes that I had put on these turtles, I could not stand, and I just wanted them gone. So instead of trying to go and take them off and whatnot, I just, again, went over them in the same color that's on the piece now, and it just really worked out. You had kind of a relief of the eyes, but not those glaring black cartoonish looking ones. This mistake involved me having this piece completely done except for adding the clock numbers, and I dropped the number onto the piece and the glue got everywhere. Oh, I was so disheartened. So I tried to clean it up as best I could, but I didn't sand it, and then I painted over it, and then I varnished it. But the end result was not good. You could still see the outline of the number. Yeah, not good. So I'm at the dilemma point now where do I try and sand that little bit and save it, or is it going to make it worse? I don't know. I don't know. Okay, we're about to try our final fix on here. I ended up sanding all of that out because at first I had just sort of wiped it off and repainted it, and it left the glue imprint on there. So I did sand it. Now, unfortunately, I didn't film this, but I'm going to show you another clip of doing the sanding part on another piece. So here I am varnishing it after the sanding and repainting and all, and it turned out really nicely. And the fix worked. And it was really just gentle sanding and very careful sanding in that one small area to get it smooth and feathered to the edges, so in the end you wouldn't notice anything had happened. And now I am very, very careful with glue. So because we didn't actually see the fix in the last scenario, I'm going to show you that here. Okay, so we're looking at mistakes here. And here, I lost sight of my line and everything sort of came off track. So what I'm doing is I'm just taking a scraper and scraping off the dots that I don't like. Okay, so, and then I'm going to have to paint that and get my line back in. Now, let's say I wanted to take them all off there. Say I just wasn't happy with these ones here. So it's just a gentle kind of, I always say it's just a sort of very intentioned movement with this. Now this paint has been on for quite a while, okay? So this has been on for weeks. Just to show you that it definitely can be done. Especially if you had just recently done it, it wouldn't be this difficult. Okay, then I take a tiny little piece of sandpaper, like so. You just want to get the area that you need smooth. Doesn't matter if you can still see it because we're going to paint it. But what you want to do is not feel any of the lines. See, this one here I can still feel a little bit. And you're trying not to gouge it in the meantime as well, right? Or hit any of your other work. Okay, so now that feels pretty smooth to me. So now we go back in with our base coat paint. Okay, so I'm just using one of these little detailing brushes. It's an eyeliner brush actually. And now I just want to get in over that area. any of the area that's been sanded. You don't want the color to look different in the background. Now this will look a tiny bit different because I did varnish this before. So it may look a tiny bit different. But once you varnish it again, when you're finished your piece, you won't even notice it. So you want to get all the brush lines out. Okay, and then you're going to let that dry. And what I'm going to do is reset that circle so I can put the rest of those dots in. So I'm just going back in with my 1 3/4 inch circle because that is the one that I'm sure that I used there. Okay, so when that's dry, I'm going to draw that line back in. Now, once I drew that line back in, I noticed that one dot really still had to go. It was a little bit off the line. That's better. Those dots are too big. Time for a moist Q-tip. Get those dots off and we'll start again. It's all about the mistakes in this module, right? Now let's get those dots back in. And I have decided to go in and overdot the dots on the left-hand side as well. Now when this dries, I'm going to go back in and varnish it again so that you can see that you won't notice the difference in the black paint below. First coat of varnish. Second coat of varnish. Okay, so there's the final fix, although I got some other paint on there, but you can see that before, when the paint was just on, it looked like it might have looked different, but once you get the varnish on there, it all goes away. That's a perfect fix. On this little piece here, we did have a couple of mistakes that we had to fix, but you can start to see now that really it isn't difficult fixing them. I knew I had to change this dot here because it wasn't in the same place as the others. So I just used my silicone tool to remove that one dot, being very careful not to hit the other dots. And now I'm just touching it up with the Rescue Black. Oh no, the wrong color, girl, the wrong color. And too small. I must have been having a rough day. I'm gonna wear out those silicone tools, honestly. That's got it. Yay! Later on in this piece, I had placed some swooshes in there, and as I was going in to try and place copper dots in between them, I realized I had not left myself enough room. So some of those swooshes were going to have to go, and we'll start again. It's never a lost cause. It's always worth doing this, and doing it as soon as you notice it. Sometimes it has to get messier before it gets better. Yay, they all fit this time. And then we carried on to create this beautiful mandala. Remember, most mistakes can be fixed. On this piece, I got a beautiful center dot in, and then I started to create the first row of dots around it, and I could not stand the color. I just didn't like it. So we're going to remove those dots and paint it out to start again. Nope. So I start here using my silicone tool to just remove those dots. It didn't really work out that way. And sometimes, as much as we talk about and we feel that this is a really meditative art form, there are times it gets to you. Apparently, I really didn't like this. Well, I don't like any of that. I guess we're starting again. Okay, we're working on an 8-inch round wood piece. Okay, we're going in with a buttermilk center, and I mean it. And we're using the 9.5. I should have stopped there, but no, I had to try and improve it, which I didn't. Ugh. Anyone else been here? Last chance. But cannot stay. For whatever reason, I really didn't like that center part. But here I'm using my needlepoint tool, that's from Dollar Tree, to just start the peeling process of this. And then I'll move on to using my plastic scraper, which did a great job of getting that off. Your center has to be bang on or close to it. This was not close, and I don't know why I didn't see that. But that's okay. We'll sand this down and we'll start again. Sweet. That's too bad because it was going so well. Okay, well, I hope this module has been helpful to you as far as figuring out what to do about any mistakes that we might have, and we will have them. But you can realize that most of them can be fixed. That's the key. Okay, so next week we're going to create our first mandala. And what I'm choosing to use here is it's a 4-inch by 4-inch canvas. Okay, you can get those at the dollar store or at Michael's. So I'm showing you this because I want you to be prepared for next week. If you can base paint it black, if you have gesso, put a coat or two of gesso on before your base coat. If not, that's fine. Just go ahead with the black. You're going to get your center point by drawing 2 diagonal lines across the piece. And then if you have a stencil, you can use that and just line up the lines that you've got in there already. Those lines are lined up, and so you can put in the rest of your lines, okay? And if not, I'm just gonna tick these. So you're gonna split this in half, 2 inches, 2 inches, 2 inches, 2 inches. And then your other lines will be at about 1 3/16 of an inch in from either side. And then you're going to draw those through until it looks like this. And then you'll take your compass. So it's 10 centimeters. Okay, so we'll start doing 0.5 centimeter increments. If you have your turntable, use that. Oh, I'm going to keep that under there because it will keep from damaging this too much. Okay, so we get our center point and we'll create our circles. It's giving you a guideline is all it's doing. It's kind of keep you on track. And if you get that done, we're ready to start for the next module to create our first mandala. So we'll see you in module 10. And remember, keep on dotting. You won't regret it. Bye-bye for now.